We have the best chemistry, but they're just not emotionally available. Okay, how many times have you said this? Heard your friends say this? Why is emotional availability so rare? And this question just does not come up in our dating and love lives. It also comes up in our friendship and very even often our families as well. People can be kind, thoughtful, affectionate. We can have a lot in common with them, great conversations. The physical chemistry is fantastic. There's a lot of desire. And still, there may be no emotional availability. And that's because emotional availability isn't about how much someone cares or how great the physical connection is. It's about whether their nervous system can actually stay present with their emotions, with your emotions, whether they can ride the tide of whatever events, whatever things come up in life that could be potentially chaotic or disruptive. Hi, I'm Kristen. Welcome back to this channel where we have conversations that are grounded around connections. One of the biggest misunderstandings we have is assuming that emotional unavailability means someone doesn't want connection. In reality, many people do want closeness, the feeling of belonging, connection, to be loved. They just don't have the internal capacity to hold it. Emotional availability isn't a personality trait, it's a learned psychological skill. And many people grew up in environments where emotions weren't welcomed, regulated, or safe. So their nervous system adapted. It learned to stay regulated by staying busy, by staying logical, by staying pleasant, by staying self-sufficient, by isolating themselves sometimes. From the outside, these people can look very functional, but when emotions deepen, something quietly closes. Emotional unavailability often starts with early emotional roles, childhood, adolescence, young adulthood. Being the caretaker, perhaps to parents that were neglectful or unable to have structure. You're someone who's the peacemaker, the person that doesn't need a lot. I'm very accommodable. Or from perhaps growing up in family systems where emotions were overwhelming, dismissed, or simply not tolerated. When somebody grows up with parents that can't tolerate emotion and they feel shame, often staying emotionally open can feel very destabilizing to them in their own adult life. And when the nervous system associates intimacy with loss of control, it learns to protect itself, not consciously, not maliciously, but automatically. The truth is, emotional unavailability usually doesn't look like cruelty. It can look like avoidance, avoiding hard conversations, deflecting when feelings are named, being present practically, logistically, but just not emotionally. Like I can be the problem solver, but I don't want to understand why you're feeling about a situation. When someone goes quiet after intimacy increases, like you've been dating someone for a while and you're getting really close and they feel like they're pulling back. We see this in our friendships. There's laughter, there's history, there's connection, but there's no real emotional learning. And you see it in families, where logistics are handled beautifully. You're being taken care of financially, let's say, but emotional truth goes unspoken. In that feeling of, I can't really talk to my parents. I can't tell them about my passions. I know my parents love me, but they don't really see who I really am. Most people aren't withholding on purpose. Their nervous system is protecting them. And that can be really hard to understand when we want to get closer and we don't understand why somebody else wouldn't want to get closer. But it's their capacity and their capacity has nothing to do with you. I've been in connections, romantic and otherwise, where the care was felt, where there was definitely chemistry, but the moment more intimacy entered the room, I could feel a shift in my body. The energy shifted, my breath shifted, the conversations were redirected. It's not like it's dramatic, it's just that you feel closed off. And when you've done enough inner work on yourself, you begin to understand that it's not about rejection of yourself. It's about understanding that that person has some kind of a limit, a capacity line. So a really great example that happens time and time again is you've met somebody off a dating site, out in the world, you're introduced to someone, and you're getting along really great right off the bat, and you think, oh my God, this is fantastic. It feels so good to have a good date, right? But the more you get to know them, the more you start exposing yourself to each other, you get physical with each other. When people begin to feel like, oh wow, I can't wait to see this person, you kind of begin to assume that you're going to see them every single week or every other week. And then they begin to kind of shut down. And a typical thing can be, let's say you've been seeing someone pretty much every week, and that in itself becomes too much for them. I mean, that's happened to me where it's sort of like, well, I'm not available. I don't think I'm going to be available next week. I don't think I'm going to be available for the next weekend, for the next month. It's this sense of like, oh my God, I might have to see this person all the time. And things go in their mind. What if I meet somebody else and I want to hang out with them? What if I don't want to be obligated constantly to have to, be with this person all the time? That's something that can often come up, and we think it's us. We think, I'm not fun anymore. I'm not attractive. They met somebody else that's more. Let me tell you something. Nobody is more interesting than you. They didn't find someone better looking than you. They're scared because there's an emotional capacity to where the intimacy level of where they can meet themselves. So therefore, if they can't even meet themselves and be honest in their level of intimacy that they have in their relationship with themselves, how can they possibly be that way with you? And it's not your fault. It's not like they're going to go be intimate with somebody else and they're going to have a better capacity with this other person. I don't care what it looks like on Instagram and who you saw them hanging out with afterwards and what the photo looked like. The same thing is going to happen. Because if they don't work on themselves, they're going to loop through it. Unless, of course, they find another person who matches their level of emotional availability, right? And then then they'll kind of keep going, so they'll be floating in this kind of surface level of intimacy, surface level thing that isn't going as deep as what you would want. So the important thing is it's never us as much as we think, but it can become about us if we decide to try to stay in something, to continue to make it work, to change something about ourselves when it's completely not necessary. And you know what? It's not even about blaming them and judging them. Well, they need to do work on themselves. At some level, it just becomes none of our business. If it doesn't work out this time, it'll work out another time. And it starts by admitting to yourself and getting clear about the type of emotional availability that you want, and getting really down and truthful with how emotionally available you really are. Because if somebody else is being triggered, right, we have our own triggers too. We're not in a void doing this by ourselves. And it's not always just about them. There could have been perhaps in an attempt to want to have more intimacy and be more emotionally available, you pushed yourself more than you really are capable. of doing right now because you want it, but you didn't quite feel safe. Whether it be they didn't make you feel safe, or you don't feel safe in yourself quite yet, or some kind of mix of both. So you can take a moment and even take this into your next meditation, take it into a journaling session with yourself. Come journal with me. I do it 2 or 3 times a week. I create a space with meditation and journaling. And maybe I will make this one of my topics next week about what is my emotional capacity? What is my emotional availability? Because maybe you weren't emotionally available for someone and there was a reason for it. And perhaps there are reasons they're not emotionally available for you that are not your concern to try to change or investigate or to turn around onto yourself. It's important to acknowledge when you're on the receiving end of emotional unavailability, it can feel deeply confusing. And that's when we really start getting into, am I asking for too much? Am I too sensitive? Did I imagine this connection? You can get into gaslighting. This is where I don't want you to abandon yourself. Don't over-explain. Don't get too much into the mind. Don't minimize your needs. Stay regulated when you're with the other person. Take a deep breath. And over time, you'll learn to trust. And you'll begin to develop a relationship with yourself, with your own nervous system, learning the inner resources and the outer resources that you need to stay regulated, to stay calm, and to stay grounded in these situations, whether it's taking a pause, don't say anything, don't text, definitely don't text. Talk to a friend that you trust first. Journal first. Read some of your favorite books about personal growth or spirituality, or take some time to read some poetry. Listen to a podcast. Move the body. Shake it out, jump around, take a walk. Here's the truth that matters. Emotional availability can't be forced. It can't be argued into existence. And it can't be healed by you staying longer or them staying longer. You can't teach someone emotional capacity by enduring its absence. Someone can be a good person and still not have the capacity to meet you where you are emotionally, what your needs are. And that does not make you too demanding. It means you're paying attention to your needs. It means you're loving yourself. And it means that you don't have to sit and suffer and silence and make something work that's not going to work, or to compromise on your heart's desire. So the real question isn't, why is emotional availability so rare? It's this: where am I asking for emotional presence from someone who doesn't have the capacity? And what would it feel like to meet reality instead of potential? Emotional availability is rare. And it's not because we're broken people, but because many of us were never taught how to stay with our feelings. We were never taught to stay in our body feeling our feelings. You don't need to make anybody wrong, definitely not yourself, but you are allowed to notice where you feel met and where you don't. That's discernment. It's not hardness. It's self-respect. Thank you so much. I'm Kristen. You are in the good, and I hope that you will come join me in more conversations like this. I post them once a week, and I am on live 2 or 3 times a week doing meditations some days, and other days I do a little ritual with meditation, then we do some journaling, then we pull an oracle card, and it's just a chill space to be together in community. And maybe I'll do a journaling topic around getting clear about what we need emotionally, or where our own intimacy capacity or it is, what that is. So I hope that you will subscribe if you want to be a member of the community. Please give me a thumbs up if this was useful to you, so that the algorithm magic can take things out into the world so that other people that would find it useful can see it. And most of all, I hope that you feel connected to yourself first and foremost, so that you can bring the most whole, the most coherent and regulated and beautiful self to the other connections in your life and to all your dreams and goals in the world. Bye.